Is streaming. All right, we're live on YouTube, and now we are live on the radio as well. Sorry for the long silence, everyone. Welcome to Distant Radio 3305. This is Dangerous Cosmology. Oh, well, welcome to Dangerous Cosmology. This is Distant Radio 3305. Or however you like it. Here with me is Commander Selfish Pie, assisting me in the
Hello.
conversational department, and of course our dear Dr. Sarah Bosman, aka Shoba. Welcome.
Hello.
And tonight's topic will be galaxies. It sounds like a real plain topic, but we're all about making plain stuff into real awesome stuff.
Galaxies are the best.
Yes, I'm watching the chat of YouTube and everywhere else. I can't be playing much as, still you guys gotta get a video feed from me, so here you go. Live from Beagle Point. I'm cruising with my SRV, which is almost out of fuel. Anyway, we should get going. There are a few questions we already got. So why don't we start? Selfish Pie, would you start with the first question while I'm trying to not crash?
I am going to try to if I can find it, because I am looking at them, but I don't know where the first one is.
The
So I'm
first
going
one
to
Kenny posted.
Kenny. Oh,
Yeah.
Kenny,
It's
Kenny.
just the
Hello,
last
Kenny.
5
How are you doing?
messages also. Yeah.
I'm an idiot, right there. All right, let's start out with the basics. Dr. Shoba, how do galaxies form?
Oh, galaxies. Well, galaxies are basically big groups of stars. They can range from very small to extremely large. They come in different types, different flavors. They contain different types of stars, different types of gas, and so on. And they form pretty much as soon as the first stars form. So there's no official definition for what was the difference between a galaxy and just a small group of stars. So there's no threshold that once you're above this number of stars, you qualify as a galaxy. Pretty much galaxies are just a group of stars isolated in space. So then technically, galaxies existed as soon as the first stars existed. So when you had the first stars forming in little groups, all sprinkled throughout the universe in little groups of hundreds or thousands, and they were kind of isolated from each other. They were already technically galaxies.
Guys, I forgot
That's how it starts.
Yeah, I forgot to ping the people. Sorry.
Oh, no.
You did make the checklist, Selfish Pie.
Well, you only got halfway through it.
You are a bad assistant. You
Yes.
should be pressing more. Well, anyway.
Well,
now
you see,
ping.
I'm trying to think of an excuse. I'm the comic relief.
Yes. Anyway, back to
Apparently.
topic.
Yes.
Group of stars. They were there before I lost the last part you said. I'm sorry.
Groups of stars. Well, how they form is basically the same way as stars. As soon as you had clouds of gas in the early universe, which collapsed to make little families of stars, they were already technically galaxies, even if it was little groups of only a few hundreds or a few thousands. So that's how they start off, as tiny groups of stars sprinkled everywhere.
All right. Okay. So how are there many different kinds of ways that these stars can be grouped together, or well, how a better way that Kenny has said this question here is what different types of galaxies are there? What variation is there? What makes them intriguing and quirky?
Well, there's a lot of them, and actually, the ones we see today in the current universe are not the only ones. So, different types of galaxies used to exist too. So, there's a whole range across space, across time. Obviously, the one we're most familiar with, especially in Elite, is galaxies like our own, like the Milky Way, which are spiral galaxies. So, spiral galaxies are kind of rare compared to in the grand scheme of galaxies. They're fairly big. They contain a few hundred billion to a trillion stars. And they're characterized by being flat, and they have arms wrapping around a central core, and then going all the way to the edges, with only a very, very, very few stars above and below the disk. So those are the most the one we're most familiar with because we live in one. They're not the most common types though, and they're not the first to form either. But let's finish with the galaxies we have today. So the spirals. There are elliptical galaxies, which are kind of the much bigger version of an elliptical. They contain a lot more stars. But nowadays, all the elliptical galaxies surrounding us in the local universe are dead. That means they're not making any more new stars. They're just sitting there, massive. They don't have a disk. They're just sort of spherical with stars in a big blob. And they can contain, on average, about 100 to 1,000 Milky Ways worth of stars. So pretty big. With the most common one being the Virgo galaxy. If any of you are keen observers, it's an easy one to spot. It's just a very massive blob of stars.
Yeah, well, I know it as the Virgo cluster.
Yeah, so these elliptical galaxies live in what is called clusters or superclusters. So they form when many galaxies sort of fall together to form these clusters where each member is as big as a few hundred Milky Ways. So overall, these are really big assemblages. They're kind of the capital cities of the universe in a way, which our Milky Way is not one. We're still a bit more common than that. And then finally, the last type, to round it up, are dwarf galaxies, which are mostly irregular shaped or tiny blobs. They're not particularly well formed. They don't have a typical structure. They can be kind of blobby, kind of squished. They can spin sometimes. And they're basically small and isolated. And they vary a lot, but they represent very few stars. There's many of them kind of everywhere. Like our Milky Way has, I think, at least 30 of these guys just like flying around the Milky Way at a large distance. So we can't reach them, especially not in elite, but they're there like the satellites of bigger galaxies, basically.
Isn't it
Right.
true that one of these other galaxies, I believe it's called Triangulum, is currently forming or being eaten by the Milky Way? Have I heard that right?
Oh yeah, there's a few. So there's a few that got absorbed or assimilated. There's a few that got assimilated quite recently, and by quite recently, I mean when the first humans were walking on the Earth, like the first Homo sapiens, they were not assimilated yet. So very recent assimilation of these satellites.
Oh wow.
Triangulum is one. It's given rise to what we call the Triangulum stream. It's a big stream of stars across the sky that used to be a little blob, and it just got shredded when it was absorbed and just torn apart in this long line of stars.
All right. Okay.
I was about to
Well,
ask if galaxies have moons.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, dwarf galaxies are like the moons of galaxies.
Which even which underlines my initial well, not my initial thesis, but I've been thinking for a while. Everything is the same, whatever scale you look at it. It's galaxies, and smaller galaxies behave like planets and moons and atoms and everything else. Everything orbits around something else.
That's true. There's a difference in scale, though. So
Of course.
planets and moons are actually really far away compared to the size of the planet. So if you look at the size of the Earth, the size of the moon, their separation is enormous compared to their size, right? But for galaxies, that's not really true. So galaxies are actually quite close to each other compared to their size, a lot closer than we're used to thinking of with planets. So one comparison I quite like to make compared to Europe. So if London is like the size of the Milky Way, you look at the size across of London is the size of the Milky Way on a map. Then our closest galaxy, Andromeda, is about as far away and as big as Paris. So not very far. London's big. Paris is not very far from London.
oh wow.
True.
That is a good sense of scale. That's quite difficult to get, but that's wow.
Yeah,
if
so
you
a lot
ever-
more approachable than different stars from each other.
Yeah, if I try to build a solar system, model solar system to scale, you know that.
Yeah, you couldn't, right?
Yeah, well, not really, except on a really, 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 really tiny scale.
Yeah. So there was this website that tried to make a solar system to scale. You just had to scroll down forever to reach all the planets. You remember
Yeah,
that?
there's one that where you can scroll from left to right, and you also can set the traveling speed in light. Yeah, well, in light speeds in Cs.
It still takes ages.
Yeah, it takes forever. Well, if you considering the Earth is 8 light minutes away from the sun, that's already quite a while, and then it's just from the sun to the Earth. And yeah, try thinking Mars or Pluto for that matter. So it's really, really, really far, and the distances only increase.
Yeah. And then the center of the galaxy from the sun is like a whole new scaling again.
Yeah, and we've just been there a few weeks ago. How about that?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It does
Nice.
mean, right? If there was a bridge of stars to Andromeda, we could get there. Like it would only take about 10 times as long as distant worlds do, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really that much.
Well, it's been 5 months, not even. Well, yeah, 4 months. 4.5 months. So take that
Approximately
times
18.
10. It's 40 months. Let's make that expedition and ask FDev to implement Andromeda.
Yeah, except there's no star bridge, right?
Yeah, they should make that. It's a
I'm
game
not
after
sure it
all.
exists in real life. Well, sure. No, something I was really excited about actually for a DLC was the Large Magellanic Cloud, right? Because you can see that one in Elite.
Yeah.
Not very far. It's part of the 2 satellite galaxies that are actually really, really close to our Milky Way. Like they're almost assimilated, but not quite. And that should be reachable, I think.
That's an idea. What about I can't? Oh, what's the name of it? The megaship, the player-controlled megaship.
Gnosis?
Yes, the Gnosis. What do you think? Because I know it has like a huge jump range, just like as part of it of what it is and like in the lore of the game itself. But like, imagine that with a neutron star boost. Like, how far could that actually get?
Right?
Well, that's an intriguing notion, actually. Has anyone ever tried to get the nurses to do a neutron jump? Well, maybe it's too big for the cone, so you have to find a really, really, really huge millisecond neutron to actually charge it up. But well,
I mean, I've found one.
theoretic. Yeah, I found dozens. Those are my. I like them the most of all neutrons because they're very gentle for their size and speed.
I am terrified of the high speed neutron stars because of the fact that I am too used to the smaller ones where you can get in relatively close and like you can do the full pitching up maneuver, but with the fast ones it's just like it's so much bigger and I can't get a sense of scale. It's
You
like
just have to
landing on the
graze
moon.
the cone.
I
Just
know, but
graze the cone.
it's like landing on the moon. You've got no sense of scale because it's so alien. I cannot get used to it. I hate it.
To be fair, I've never dared yet to use a boost. I've considered it, and I was like, nope, 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 nope.
Well, let me tell you this. I've been also concerned about this, but I'm more afraid of black holes in the game than of neutron boosts, because they're actually not that problematic. If you just have the right angle of approach, it's just easy as waiting for 5 seconds. You go down with you go in with like 20 megaseconds at a regular megameters per second. Sorry for that. At a regular neutron star, and you wait 5 seconds. You graze the cone during doing that, and then throttle up back to 100%, and well, that's it. once you're out, you've got your neutron boost, and once your ship
Then you can-
stops shaking, you can aim for your next target.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. That doesn't sound too bad, actually. That's
I
terrifying, but
Yeah, and the millisecond neutrons actually are the most gentle ones.
Mhm.
so they don't shake you as much.
Yep.
Nah, they're not. They're not as violent. I am gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I actually used white dwarfs to practice.
I hate white dwarfs.
Same. They are disgusting.
Well, for practice,
Oh.
But
they're good for practice because they're hard.
uh-huh.
They're the hardest
They're-
kind of boost cones to go through.
Not only that, but like some of them, their exclusion zone is so high that you can't even get through it.
Well, if
It's like,
Chenko,
why even have
he would say the exclusion zone is always the same size.
It's,
Is that true?
Mm, pretty much.
And completely unphysical.
Yep.
Okay.
okay.
At least for
Well, anyway.
neutron stars and white dwarfs, that's the case.
Hmm.
Hmm. I'm sorry, I'm drinking mulled wine and it's making my speech slurry.
Oh, we're allowed to drink. I'm 17, so I'm not allowed
You're
to
not.
have alcohol. But
Well,
I
you got
am
my
over
permission, but I
16.
don't think that's.
I am over 16, and with the caffeine laws, then you need to be 16 or over to drink energy drinks. So
Well, that's a good
unless it
law.
explodes, it is a good law. But it was annoying because it was implemented just before my 16th birthday, and I didn't have any ID. So there was a few months of my life where I was just walking about with my passport.
Yeah, be glad it's just about energy drinks. We've got stuff in Germany that's a little more concerning, like tobacco.
Beer
Yeah,
gardens. How popular
like 10
are
years
they? I
ago,
know it's a
10 years ago, tobacco was allowed as at the age of 16. And
what?
yeah, that's pretty hard. And most of my friends started smoking at that time, and they were 15 or 14 and a half, and then the law got passed, and they suddenly had to stop smoking or ask people to get them smokes on the dispensers.
Jeez.
Oh,
Or
no.
what's it's called? Dispensers, vending machines.
The only time I've ever smoked is in my dreams, and even then I was coughing like. Oh
Yeah, don't
God.
start, don't try it.
No,
It
I'm
might
not.
it might feel good, except the coughing stuff and so on, because you can get
Oh
used
no
to
no no
that.
no no!
But
These were nightmares.
no, you can get used to the coughing and stuff. But the actual effect, it's addictive for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
And
much.
Not only that,
You
but
don't have to start that. And yeah, I quit a few
No.
years ago with my best friend together.
Oh, good for you, man.
Yeah, it's just a matter
Congrats.
of willpower.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but it's really dangerous in the fact that you get more I think I can't remember which radiation, so you're gonna have to take this with a grain of salt. I will admit when I'm wrong if I'm wrong, so if this is wrong, I apologize. But
Okay.
I have been told that the radiation you get from the actual gas that you smoke in will give you a higher dosage of radiation in a week than an astronaut will get in 6 months.
Yeah, I
On the
haven't
ISS.
actually researched that, so I can't confirm.
Ah, that sounds unlikely, but it could be.
It does, but I mean, in my physics class, we were
I mean-
like this was last year. We were learning about. It was like the first time we were learning about weight factors
to
on different
produce
types of
that amount of
radiation.
radiation, to produce that amount
Yeah.
of radiation, you have to actually have some fission going on in that amount of time to actually produce it. And I don't know if cigarettes are they
Well,
won't cut
more
it.
to the point, burning burning anything and inhaling the smoke creates a whole bunch of stuff you don't want to breathe in, right? No matter what you burn.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't create radiation. You can create radiation by burning. It would be the same as eating it.
But does it create, radioactive material?
You can no, it doesn't create it. Burning something has nowhere near the power to create something radioactive.
Well, a flame is ionized gas. So, ionized gas
Partially
has other properties.
ionized plasma.
Yeah, well, no, the plasma is ionized gas.
There's
one
a
of
small
the
amount of it.
one of the well, we're digressing more and more.
You're both correct. It's partially ionized plasma. But the point is, that's nowhere near enough to break an atom nucleus. Nowhere near, like many thousands of times, not enough to create something radioactive. Right?
So,
it can mess with the electrons, but not the nucleus of atoms.
Bam,
so any
debunked.
radiation you get from smoking, you'd get the same by just eating it. The real danger of smoking is that you create a whole bunch of carbohydrates and stuff that at the moment when you burn it, and no matter what you burn is the same. So if it's weed, you're not safe. It's exactly the same dangers.
Yeah.
You create things like...
That's why you vape and don't burn it. Just make it hot enough to evaporate the essential oils.
The more you know.
If you bake it, you're slightly more safe, but not entirely.
Yes, of course. That's better because of the fluids in the lungs, and that's no good because pneumonia. What's it called in English?
Anyway,
it's good that we were talking about satellite galaxies and we're a bunch of nerds and we eventually digressed onto how to cook weed.
Well,
or tobacco. Look.
Well,
I'm sorry. I just enjoyed the where the conversation was going because it just made sense to move from one topic to the other. Anyway, back to galaxies. Back to completely non-secular stuff.
Well,
do
you want to take this? Do you want to take this one, Michael, to get us back on track, or shall I?
Okay, I will. Next questions. What type of galaxies are there?
Right,
That's
so
the one we've already done.
No, it's okay because we went over the ones we currently have, right?
Oh
So
yes, sorry. I'll back down.
God damn it! I'm not paying attention to my own stuff. Sorry.
No. We'd only finished half.
It's good because I wasn't actually done. So
okay,
yes,
let's. Okay. It was Providence.
Right, because it ties up to the first question, right? How do galaxies form? How do we end up with the three types that we have today? We have our spirals that are still forming stars like the Milky Way. The Milky Way still makes stars, by the way. Don't know how many. Roughly at least one a year, but more or less, we're not sure.
One?
But it's still on average making, more or less.
Isn't I need to talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson when I get the chance. He told me it was 100 a year. Oh no, he said 100 a decade. Sorry.
Yeah, at least we're
not the Milky Way. Other galaxies maybe.
The dark era, so the galaxies, of course, will be producing stars for a while still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, but roughly it's about one new star per year. Although they make it makes them in little bursts, right? Not regularly, like every year on the same day. That would be really cool, but it's not like a yearly event.
We could make that a holiday.
So spiral galaxies.
Yeah, we love it.
That's true. New Star Day.
We won't.
Be cool.
That would be the shift from astrology to astronomy in things about stars, because we wouldn't use the astrological science as we are using. We would be astronomical science, and that would be way cooler.
We could give them a new name, and then people could vote on it every year. Except
yes, democracy. Not
on
in my
Stellarity.
empire.
It would be Starry McStarryface every time.
Oh, I love
probably
that,
swarm intelligence and stuff, all that. Let's
anyway.
continue. What type of galaxies are there? What other types?
Or were there?
spiral galaxies nowadays still forming stars, big dead ellipticals not forming any stars anymore, and small dwarfs floating around, right? So, if we go back to the past, there was this a big, how to call it, this big hissy fit in the history of the universe. It was about 5 to 6 billion years ago, so about halfway through the history of the universe. And that's when actually the universe formed most of its stars. It went through most of the resources within a few billion years back then, in what we call the golden age of star formation. They just took all these resources, and more than half of all the stars that will ever form were made then, in a very short amount of time, basically. So worrying. And we were not around to see it. The Milky Way was not in one of those places that was eating up resources. The Milky Way is kind of isolated compared to all this stuff. And it's because basically the big ellipticals that are dead now, when they were forming, they were eating up resources at a much, much higher rate. And they were making 100 to 1,000 new stars per day on average for billions of years. So big hissy fit, like teenage for the universe.
Hey, come on.
It's a good thing. Teenage is
there
when
are
you have
exceptions.
energy, right? You just like eat all the food and you have all the energy. It's a good thing.
Yeah, but I'm fat. I mean,
Well, for me, it doesn't happen anymore. I eat all the food and then I fall asleep.
yeah, but you're 30. Well, you've.
I'm 31.
Fair enough.
Yes, say it.
Oh, 31.
I'm starting to feel it too. Enjoy it. Enjoy the energy while you have it.
Yes, and
Oh, it was
when you
long
don't
gone.
have it anymore, start enjoying the lack of energy, because that's something you can enjoy actually too. Like falling asleep after eating. It's what pandas do, and it's great. Believe me.
That is one of my favorite things to do.
Okay, so
Right. So that's one type of galaxy we don't have anymore, active ellipticals. But if you look back in time by looking at far away galaxies, because you see them like they were in the past, because the light took so long to reach us, there is a slice in time, like a slice in distance, where all ellipticals were active like this. Like they had their golden age, which was over pretty quickly, because like all big things that eat a lot of resources, they also run out of resources pretty quickly. Much like fossil fuel or the sun, or more like Beetlejuice.
Oh, right, yeah. Because that's. How long until that goes supernova again? Like Beetlejuice?
Any day now. So we don't know what's
Any day
happening
now.
in the core. We might not be able to tell. Well, it could
And
be a few
it's.
thousand years, or it could be a few days. I mean, we don't know what's going on in the core, really.
And it's 600 light years away.
Yeah.
That
mean-
is a day I want to see.
It would be our first supernova visible during the day in the last, I think, 1,000 years or something. It's supposed to be.
There was one suspected about not 500, about 700 years ago in Eastern Asia, I believe. And there was one, although the one in Eastern Asia, it's a bit choppy, so it's not really considered the latest one. The latest one, I think you're talking about, might have. Oh no, there's one in between, but the one I'm thinking of was the one in Egypt, where it was as bright as the moon, and it like cast shadows, and like there's records of it like all over the place.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you're thinking of the one of Tycho Brahe, but I don't think it was
Yeah.
visible. I don't think it was visible during the day. That one. I think the
During the
last
day,
one.
right?
No. So there have been a few visible during the night, like new stars. I think there's been like 3 since. There's been 3 of them in the last 1,000 years or something, 3 or 4 that you could see with your eye during the night. But the last big one you could actually see it during the day was 1,000 years ago. That was recorded, I think, all over the world. Like the Chinese had it, the Egyptians. Well, they didn't exist anymore by then, the Egyptian civilization, but
records
it was recorded everywhere, basically.
Is there any way to predict something like that happening in our lifetime?
Statistically, we're kind of overdue. That's kind of what people say. Based on the rate at which they were happening in the past, we're a bit overdue for one. Like, it seems to be either slowing down or it could happen statistically any day.
Man, if statistics holds up, we're gonna get so many cool things in the next like 100 years.
Yeah,
We're gonna-
science-wise, we live in really, really prosperous times right now.
But
We're gonna.
it's like flipping a coin, right? It's like flipping a coin that has a 1 chance in 1,000 of happening every year. Just because it doesn't happen 1,000 times doesn't mean it will happen the next time. But statistically, it's been a bit long.
But like, how cool would it have been to have the next ice age come in?
Now.
The next daylights, yes, now. Like, please now. Please.
Well, currently the weather here
Hey.
feels like it.
Please.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're in luck because according to latest sun monitoring, we're heading towards a massive solar minimum in a few decades from now. The intensity
isn't
of the
it?
sun is going through its basically the sun varies really, really slowly over time, and it's heading for a very big minimum of activity. We're also that's also lucky for global warming, isn't it? Like just as we're overheating it, there's going to be less sunlight.
It is a little bit, but I believe isn't that because of the fact that its poles, like the sun's poles, because it's a plasma, its magnetic field isn't as what should I say, systematic, and so isn't there a time where the poles are actually on the same side of the sun?
Oh yeah, so the internal magnetism of the sun is a complete mess. The poles can be pretty much anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cool, but
don't those flip like every 11 years, and that's what the minimum, or is that the minimum of like super or of solar wind activity that I'm thinking of?
The 11-year one is the cycle of sunspots. So you get more or less sunspots on the surface of the sun. And the more you have, the cooler the sun is. But you're right, actually, there's many cycles. Some of them have 11 years, some of them are 50, some of them are a few hundred. So sometimes these cycles of heating up and cooling down for different reasons don't line up, but sometimes they do. And it looks like they're going to line up and be particularly cold in a few decades.
Nice.
So,
I mean, if we keep going in the way that we are, we're going to die anyway. But
we will be dying anyway.
It will definitely delay global warming.
Once you cross the age of 25, you're technically dying.
Oh, come on.
Just being cynical here. Come on.
Well, no, that's only technically true because 25 is the average age at which you're fully developed as a human being. That's the average. So I could be like 27 and still have a terrible prefrontal cortex.
Too.
There's a few things that statistically stop at 25. It's true, like growing and neuron connections. Although it's not like
no, it's I believe studies have revealed neurons and especially brain cell development continues up to the age of 70 or 80.
I don't think development, but I think I'm very poor on like the technical words, but I feel like regeneration would be the right word. Or
no. They actually form new neuron connections up until the age of 70. So you actually
that's
get
what I'm talking about.
Neuron cells and new connections. It's not regeneration.
It replaces the dead
development.
Ones.
No, it is development. You get new connections. Like
okay.
The neurons physically grow.
So
they don't replace anything.
In layman's terms, it means you can learn new stuff until the age of 70. Really learn new stuff and not just learn old ways to remember stuff you not know.
Well, technically, it's always possible to learn because learning is just making a memory, for example. It's making a memory, for example. It's a repetition of electrical signals. You can make as many of them as you want as long as you have a pathway. So
yeah, but forming those pathways is what's.
No, that's what I'm talking about. We're getting a bit off topic and I'm getting confused.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But those are important topics because, well, concerning the future, we are pretty much approaching the expected or a projected date of the technological singularity, which could mean for humans that we would be able to transfer our brains or the contents of our brains into a digital platform and, well, live forever.
Yeah, well, let's not jump the gun.
Given the
I
fact
think-
that we still don't have prosthetics that can even give the brain a sensation of feeling, I don't think we can get the brain to have a sensation of feeling an entire body.
Yeah, I was
Yet.
just I was thinking that too, because we don't have the feedback part quite figured out yet. We
I mean, there
know
was a
of
special case
force
of a
feedback
woman
and impact
who was
vibration.
able to,
you know,
Sorry.
like I can't remember what it was, but what they did was like her arm had been amputated just above the elbow, which was actually relatively strange in some way. I'm not a medical professional, so don't take my word for this. But it was like her arm had been unfortunately like amputated in such a way that like they could actually reattach like one of her lost nerves that went along her arm, and essentially it was the one nerve that handles like how your hand feels. And so what they did was they hooked up a prosthetic very carefully so that the bit where obviously the prosthetic you put your limb in, or well, your, I don't want to call it a nubbin.
Call it whatever you want, because
Right, well,
at least if everyone understands it, it's fine.
well, the bit that you put your nubbin into in a prosthetic arm, that's called the sleeve. And so what they did was on the sleeve, on the remaining part of her arm, they I don't want to say reinstalled. She's a person, not a robot. I'm poorly explaining this, but essentially what they did was they reconnected this, like a version of this nerve up to the upper part of her arm, like just along, sort of like a just literally just a line. And so essentially, what they did was in the sleeve they put electrodes at specific points along this reattached nerve, and it actually meant that she was able to get. It wasn't a literal sense of feeling, but it was like a weird sort of pseudo feeling based on her, what she was trying to do. Like she could think, the machine would interpret that it would move, and she could feel, and she could feel resistance in the hand, and it was fantastic. Like it's huge. There's
I believe you. I know what you mean. Yes.
yeah. What was her name? Do you have her name?
No, I don't have a name, but I
No.
think I glazed the report.
Yeah.
It was about, well, she lost her arm and it got reattached, and she actually was able, after some training, well, no, after some training, I don't know, but she was able to actually feel the sensations she was actually experiencing with that
It was
prosthetic
fantastic.
limb. I think it's more of a mental thing, because the phantom limb stuff is real, of course.
Yeah.
And because of that, if you got your limb and it doesn't hurt, your brain doesn't see the signals that actually cause those phantom pains to occur as necessary, and it happens subconsciously, and it will probably, yeah, I think it would work in a pretty basic way. We wouldn't have to actually transfer the signals electronically.
I mean, that might be an easier problem to solve than transferring your consciousness, as in all the connections, just because we have zero ways of actually mapping those.
Yeah,
like zero ways.
We would have to figure that out if we wanted to transfer our consciousness. But
I highly doubt it will happen in our lifetime anyway.
Well, the technological
The-
singularity is projected to happen at somewhere between 2050 and 2070, and if we survive that long, which, at least in my case, I'm probably the oldest one in this voice chat now, might happen. Yeah, it might still happen. If I treat my body carefully, I might survive that long, and yeah, the singularity. Sorry, my tongue. It means that the progression of technological advancement will happen exponentially or even faster, and what we don't know what would happen once that point is reached. So transferring the consciousness into a digital environment is just one possibility that might occur sooner than later.
Even
Well-
even with the technical, I mean, we're getting off topic, so I'm going to try and bring
Again.
this back somehow.
Yes, please.
But even with the technological singularity, you would still have to figure out how to code a system to understand the brain, and like how, or well, not even how to understand the brain, but how to understand the mind. Like, how do you do that? We would have to find out what biologically programs the mind.
Yeah, maybe it's not us who would have to find that out, but the AIs that rule us by then.
Fair enough.
All hey, the
Well,
AI
anyway.
super what's it called? God damn it. Overlords.
What?
God damn it. Yeah.
Well, on the topic of supermassive black holes,
On the
Why-
topic, okay.
Yeah.
on the topic of supermassive black holes, Dr. Bosman,
Yes.
why do most / all galaxies end up with a supermassive black hole at its center? Why is that the prevailing theory? What is the evidence for this?
Well, the evidence is that we see them, or at least we see their effect on the stars in the centers of galaxies. So we can measure a black hole's mass. If it's currently eating matter, it's easy. You can just look at how the matter gets eaten. You get how big the black hole is. Even if it's not currently eating, it's still basically perturbing all the stars in the center of the galaxy, making them spin faster in very specific ways. So actually, we see this effect in all galaxies, and we can even measure the masses of these supermassive black holes. They seem to be at the center of literally all galaxies we've ever seen, apart from maybe the dwarf ones. But even the dwarf galaxies look like they have like slightly smaller supermassive black holes in their centers. So they're there. The evidence is really strong. They're a lot smaller than the galaxies they live in, like 1,000 or 10,000 times less heavy than the actual galaxy. So it's not like the galaxy is forming around the black hole. The black hole is actually really light compared to the mass of all the stars around it.
Yeah, I've heard that Sag-A actually only has about 1.8% the mass of the entire galaxy. Is that what you're talking about? Is that true?
Yeah, actually, probably less than that. Probably less than
Alright.
1% seems a bit too much, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah, so actually, the black holes in the center are very small compared to the galaxies around them as a fraction. So it's kind of weird that they sink there. But the thing that happens is being at the center is the only place that it's stable for the black hole to be, just because it has this tendency to perturb orbits around it. It will kind of tend to fall into the bottom of the potential, created by all the stars. So all the stars would still go around each other, even if there wasn't a black hole at the center. But when the black hole comes along, it will sink to that point that all the stars are going round of, so that they kind of
Alright.
migrate to the center. And that also happens, for example, if you have galaxy collisions, when you have like spiral galaxies crashing into each other, which happens sometimes. They both come along with a black hole each, and pretty soon both black holes will sink to the center of the final result of the collision. So the galaxies collide, all the stars merge to make a new galaxy, and then the black holes will slowly fall to that center. pretty quickly, actually. But yeah, the deeper question, why are there supermassive black holes at all? We don't know. Or we don't actually really know where supermassive black holes come from. And we don't really know if the galaxy comes first or the black hole forms first. It's a bit of a mystery how you can get supermassive black holes so big.
I'm sure that I've asked this question too many times for it to be fun anymore. But I keep misunderstanding people whenever they try to re-explain it. So, what I have heard about macroscopic black holes at the beginning of the universe and how people think that that might possibly explain the sudden huge growth of supermassive black holes. Is that actually what's happening, or is that just a sort of fun thing to think about, but probably not true?
No, that's unrelated to supermassive black holes. So it's neither of those things. Microscopic black holes, if they exist, uh, they wouldn't do any better than just starting with a stellar-sized black hole from the first stars. The problem is, if you start with a small black hole, like the one left over by a star, or a microscopic one from whatever reason, if you start with a small one, you have to grow them at an almost physically impossible rate. Even if you start with big black holes the size of a star at the point in time where the first star dies, that cannot reach the size of the supermassive black holes that we see after only 1 billion years. Like it's too fast. We don't really know by what process they could grow from that size to supermassive that quickly. So, and that does not help if you have more microscopic ones, because microscopic black holes, if they exist, they are microscopic. They don't do any better than starting with star size one. Now, if you could have primordial big black holes, that would help, because then you have to grow them less. They start off big, but you don't get those primordially. Those will still form those would still appear by some process later on in the universe, like from the first galaxy clusters or the first direct collapse of big gas clouds or whatever. So you can start with slightly bigger initial ones, but microscopic ones don't help. Yeah.
All right. Now, I heard you mention there a little bit before we got into the macroscopic black holes something about galaxy collisions. Now, Kenny's also brought something else up. What are some of the speculations of what will happen when Andromeda and the Milky Way collide? Because they are on a collision course. So
Yes.
what's the big cheese about that? Is that even a saying? What am I on about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But okay, let's start with galaxy collisions, because I have this video that I really like, so I put it on the Discord. I don't know if we have a stream, if we can show it. It's one of my
Ooh.
favorites.
I can if you.
Michael.
Yes, I can.
Michael. Yes.
No, just tell me when you start it.
The stream is online already. Just let me copy the link and I will. Just a second. Oh, wrong window. Media source. I hope it works. Well, let me just do it otherwise. Screen capture would be better. Window capture.
You know, the weird thing is I'm legitimately enjoying the commentary.
Yay.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that as a joke. I don't know why, but I'm enjoying this. You're doing a good job, Michael.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I've added Firefox as the media capture. I hope everyone can see it. I am opening the new tab and pasting the link. And I'm playing it back now.
So this is basically a simulation made by NASA of galaxies colliding. It starts with this very simple simulation, and is going to stop sometimes and show real pictures.
Yeah, it does.
So basically, it has these very idealized spiral galaxies like the Milky Way, and it's just letting them be attracted to each other just by gravity. So they get quite close. We saw one image where galaxies are just quite close. And then as they start to merge, you can start to see all the stars on the outside being flung out and just form these huge arcs. And
Like
then sometimes
wings.
it's like wings. Actually, I think the next one we're gonna see is called the antennae galaxy, because it has these antennae on either side, which is I think it's very cool.
Look like a
So you
little
can,
insect.
yeah, so you can really see like how we see these collisions out in space from all sorts of different angles and all different levels of merging. I think the photos are really cool, actually.
These are fantastic. These are beautiful.
And I like they can all be described by this like quite simple model of just two spiral galaxies. You collide them together, you get all this cool stuff that we actually see. I think that's really neat.
So what I don't know, I think I'm a little bit further ahead as you guys, but what about all those stars that are flung out? Are they similar to rogue planets in that they just become rogue stars?
Some of them do, yeah, actually. Some of the stars on the outskirts do end up flung out and become orphan or dark stars, dark systems, which would be a really cool setting for a sci-fi. Wait a minute. In the Hitchhiker's Guide, there is a planet like this that grew up thinking there was nothing in the sky except themselves. That's what you would see if you were in one of those systems. So your entire life would be conducted seeing no other stars in the night sky. You would be outside of the galaxy, outside of everything, just flung out alone with your little sun and your little planets.
Yeah, I
And you
wouldn't
would
ever
think
know
there was
about
nothing out
anything.
there.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't ever know about stars or galaxies or even space for that matter, because you wouldn't. It would be just dark, and you wouldn't ever get the idea of trying to find what's out there.
Yeah. Well, in the setting of the Hitchhiker's Guide, if I remember, when they did find out there were planets out there, they were really angry, so they decided to destroy all of them to be alone again. Completely reasonable reaction, if you ask me.
Well, the reason that people think that other civilizations will act like that is because we act like that. So it's one, it's probably a false equivalency, but two, it shows that we're secretly self-aware and don't want to admit that we're stupid.
Yeah, and it shows that we're taking ourselves for way too important.
Yeah.
Because actually we're pretty much insignificant for everything else that's happening outside our planet, and well, maybe at least we might be affecting the solar system in the course of our existence as a human race, but that's pretty much it. If we don't reach a point where we actually have this singularity thing happening in our technological development.
The way I like to look at it. Now I'm 17. I don't want to give a false sense of stupidity based off of my age. That's not a correct way to look at it. However, the way that I do like to look at it, or well, no, I'm going to try again. I say that I'm 17 because I don't want to give a sense of false wisdom or false self horn tooting or whatever the word is. But the way I look at it is that the sun makes up 99.98% of the mass in our own solar system. That means that the planets have only 0.02% of the rest of it. And that's if you exclude everything else. Now, given that you could hang on. Oh no, I've forgotten my values. Oh no, what's the mass of Jupiter? What's the? Oh no.
1 Jupiter mass.
Well,
I'm sorry.
given that the mass of Jupiter is 1 Jupiter mass,
Yes.
and that is approximately the gravity of the Earth's surface is
230
9.8
times
Jupiters.
the mass of Earth? I don't know.
The mass of Earth, I know
About
that.
300,
that is,
okay.
the mass of Earth is 6 times 10 to the 24. So 6 times 10 to the 24 times...
The mass of Earth is 1 Earth masses.
No, it's 6.6 times 10 to the 24 kilograms. 6 times 10 to the power... Why is the scientific calculator not working on my phone? This is a terrible... Apple, get your
Perhaps you're
calculator
using the wrong
to work.
one.
No, Apple's...
Oh, you're using Apple. That's why. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. They call it a scientific calculator, but it doesn't even show you brackets.
Get
Oh, well,
an
they have
Android
brackets, but
phone.
it doesn't work.
If you're a real scientist, get an Android
This is
phone.
besides the point.
Get rid
Well,
of
anyway.
your iPhone. Get
Oh,
rid
that's
of your
useful.
iPhone.
Right, this is off topic extremely, but when I type in 6 times 10 to the 24, guess what the value it gives me as?
6 times 10 to the 24.
Aha. 6e24, because it doesn't have a
Yeah.
times 10 to the 24. Like, it doesn't even support powers like Apple. Just shut up and do it in an actual calculator. It's not that difficult. You've got a revolutionary piece of technology that's better than what they had on the ISS.
Try Calculator Plus if you've got it on the App Store.
Yeah. Well, anyway, 6 times 10 to the 24 times how much? How many Earths? 263, did you say?
About 300.
Oh, 300, okay.
About,
Thank you.
300.
which is...
Because I don't have a clue, actually. I was just guessing. And that proves my my intuitive knowledge of science, because I was pretty close.
Well, anyway. Jupiter has 1.8 times 10 to the 27 kilograms, which is the majority of the mass of the planet. Well, no, it's not the majority, but it's the largest of the planets. And so, for the Earth to have 6 times 10 to the 24, I'm really bad at this. I need to get better at this. But for the Earth to have 6 times 10 to the 24 kilograms, and for me to weigh... Actually, Michael, how much do you weigh?
I 65 kilograms.
Good job, man.
No, not good job. I'm struggling to get more weight on the scale. I'm one of the ones with a pretty much highly aggressive metabolism.
Right. I apologize then. But for the Earth to have less than 0.02% of the solar system's mass, and for it to have such a huge amount of mass as 6 times 10 to the 24 kilograms, what are you going to do with your 64? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
So,
what are you going to do with your... What am I going to do with my insignificance?
Counter question. How
Back on
much
track, I
how
like it.
much does information weigh?
Oh, come on.
No, but we're getting again off topic.
Yeah, that's my bad. I'm very sorry. That was
No,
completely
for
my
once
fault.
it wasn't me.
Okay.
Let me see.
Where were we? We're talking about Andromeda and the Milky Way colliding.
Yes.
Yes.
And yeah, well, metacognitive Mauvais said most of the stars won't collide with each other, which is obvious because of space. There's so much space in space. You wouldn't guess if you don't play Elite, but if you do play Elite, you know what we're talking about.
Yes,
That's good.
I'm gonna
actually.
stop talking. I don't want to
Feeling
go
for
off
that.
topic again. I'm scared.
It's actually really cool. People get a feeling for that just from playing Elite.
Yes, and that's what I love about it.
It's obvious if you think about it. The stars will all miss each other, right?
And
because there's so much space in between. How would they even collide with each other?
yeah, it's pretty improbable. And
It's like an inverted sponge.
Kinda.
Yes, but
I get the feeling that didn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but with more difference in scales.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's Whatever,
I'm g-
a gazillion times more space than
I'll-
not space.
I'll tell you what. I will shut up.
No, you
But
won't.
yeah, but okay.
No, sorry, I was interrupting you again.
What were we on? Yes, so the stars miss each other, but we still think that after only a few billion years, the combined galaxy will still become a spiral again. It should be able to survive the collision. And once all the stars have kind of messed each other, they will start orbiting in a nice little disk again.
Yeah,
So it might be quite violent at first, but eventually we'll get a disk once more.
Violent on a galactic scale, for that matter. We wouldn't pretty much not notice anything, I believe, if we still
we'd notice
existed.
the Milky Way in the night sky looking differently. It wouldn't be a flat line anymore.
Perhaps some geological events that are caused by the gravitational stuff. But
well, actually, it will happen about the same time than the sun dying. So I think we'll be busy with other stuff.
no, if we're smart, we will be done with the sun dying problem by then already, and we'll be living across a much wider area.
We'd have to go interstellar if we want to survive the Earth's death, because if you looking at Europa, the habitable zone will go out to Europa.
Come on,
it will be very temporary. Yes, sorry, I said I'd shut up.
No, you're fine, but we're going interstellar right now, and if the people keep supporting endeavors like SpaceX or Blue Origin, like they're doing now, it will pretty much happen in this century, and not interstellar but interplanetary. Sorry, but that's pretty much the first step we have to make before going interstellar. And once that happens,
not completely impossible though.
Yeah, and once we have the practice, we will get faster and faster at getting better.
Yeah, and pretty much.
That's what it's all about. So not all hope is lost for 10 billion years from now, humanity.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know.
But
I agree with you.
Getting back to the merging of galaxies, Kenny was asking, with the merge of the two galaxies, is there a chance that Sol, our sun, will be flung out of our galaxy, or is that even possible at all with our sun, with any solar system?
It's possible, but it happens very, very rarely, actually. Even when you see these big arms on the edge of galaxies that look like they're being flung out, actually, most of them end up falling back in again because they don't gain enough speed outwards just from the initial collision. But what can happen is even if stars don't collide with each other, if they have a near miss, that's enough to fling one of them out. So it's more from star-star encounters than from actually the big shape-changing event. The shape-changing event is actually quite safe. What's not so safe is if a star comes even slightly close to Sol, then we might be flowing out. But I think the probability of that is less than 1%, or a lot less than 1%. Very, very few stars actually get that to them.
Okay, I'm playing a video about the future of the universe that was posted by Fatpacker in the videos channel right now. I think it's fitting to the discussion in contrast to my screen indeed.
I'm sorry. What name? What was the name?
The video name?
No, the person.
Fatpacker.
Oh,
with a
okay.
P. Yeah.
No,
I actually try to avoid the innuendo.
No, I'm sorry. I've misheard it anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah. The video will accompany our discussion.
Right. Yeah, and finally, the merger of the Milky Way and Andromeda, we already have a name for it because scientists are actually working out what kind of shape it would have or survival probabilities and things like that. It's called Milkdromeda. the galaxy that you get after the two are merged. It's a very horrible name.
Yeah, it's a very, very
I
horrible
love
name.
it.
I believe.
I love it.
I believe Andromeda would be better.
But it has
No.
but we have to prefer one of them, right? We have to be a bit partial to
No,
the one
actually,
we range.
we should start a contest about giving it an entirely new name. It shouldn't have
Ooh.
either Milky Way or Andromeda in it. Well, it may use the same letters, of course, but besides that, it should be a
It
new
should
name.
be. It should
Well,
be an
if-
anagram of Andromeda and Milky Way.
Probably.
That would
well,
be
if
an
any
option.
humans are still around, we will maybe
Yeah, by
worry
then we
about
probably
it.
would be a completely non-corporeal species. By whatever means that takes. It might be spiritual, it might be digital, or whatever.
Who knows where humanity will live by then?
Yeah, around black holes.
Or red
This is
dwarfs.
probably-
Red dwarfs?
Yes,
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
they can survive for trillions of years.
Yeah, and
In the
the
long
thing
term,
is,
it will be the only option.
once we're digital,
Oh dear, I unpaused
the
that.
passage
I
of
didn't mean to do
time
that.
won't
I'm sorry,
mean
this is very loud.
anything
That's my bad.
to us.
Sorry.
It won't mean anything to us, but stars still run out, And the last stars to run out will be red dwarfs, so...
And after that, we still have black holes to harness.
And mirrors.
To harvest.
Maybe.
Yeah, we don't have the technology for that yet, of course.
Beyond that is completely unknown. Let's not. I think I know the video you mean because I watched it and I had a complaint about almost every single thing they talk about in that.
There's a lot of videos regarding that I watched, and most of them are by Isaac Arthur, and he's been Andromeda Way. That's a good suggestion Kenny made there. But Isaac Arthur at least lists all the possibilities that are actually there, and he tries to explore all of them, and I think that's what redeems him in terms of futurism, because even if he goes so much sci-fi, it's still something you can consider, because it's so far in the future you can't actually experience it yourself. Except if we go digital this century, and that's, well, not out of the question, at least.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we keep going off topic because, well, not because, but I am thinking way too far ahead in terms of galaxies, because, well, galaxies.
That's fine.
If you try to put yourself into the shoes of a galaxy, how fast would the passage of time actually be to you?
It'd be very quick, would it not?
That's not a very well-defined question. I mean, if you look at how
were
fast
a galaxy,
you wouldn't perceive time because you're made of non-conscious matter.
yeah, but
time doesn't get
if you were
dilated.
conscious, that would be a given.
If you were the galaxy from Futurama that talks to Bender when he gets stuck in the middle of the
Seen
universe,
that.
it's a pretty unsubstantiated episode.
But
It's
I have to
essentially a
watch
small
it. I have to watch it.
No, it's the only funny bit of the episode. The only other bit was when he ran into a tiny civilization and he evolved on his ass.
Yeah, but what about it? About the galaxy?
Oh, about the galaxy, it was essentially playing the act of God. The episode was trying to say that the galaxy could speak in binary to Bender and then in English, and that it was God.
Okay. That's cool, I guess.
Well, in
I mean, it
a
was
sense,
funny,
it's also
but-
true. If the
Well-
galaxy was conscious, it would be God about itself.
Oh.
I'm not sure
Oh,
there's any.
that's...
Yeah, in the
Sorry,
same
no.
way you're God about yourself as a human.
Oh, you stole my analogy.
No, I was thinking the same. That's what you should have said.
Yeah, but I'm immature,
Okay,
so
you're
everything's
excused.
mine.
Everything's you. Yeah. No, not
But
true.
Fine.
that's a pretty
Sorry.
weird concept.
That's just being youthful, I think.
Hmm.
Anyway,
I understand like why people tend to imagine that the bigger you are, the slower time is for you, but that's not actually true on the scale of a galaxy at all.
no,
Like time wouldn't slow down just because you're bigger. You
no,
wouldn't be bending space that much,
no, that's
especially
not
since the
not the
galaxy
case.
isn't
But
very concentrated. So it's still pretty mild space-time curvature.
no, but if you think about how perception of time changes about with the age of a human, um, with when you're getting older, you always look back and think, "Wow, how so much time has passed already," and it's always getting faster for you. And I think the same would be applying to a galaxy if you were a conscious galaxy. So galaxies exist for way longer, and because of that, of course, your perception of time would be growing faster and faster, or slower and slower, because
I think that might be an animal bias because that's how things tend to work for animals. If you're really big, you don't need to feed as much. I don't know.
no, I'm not talking about size. I'm just talking about lifetime.
I think
Because
we're having a
with
poor
increasing age, your
argument.
perception of time changes, and it seems always with higher age, it seems the past time seems to have been passed faster than when you were younger, and that concept, I mean.
I believe we are having a
Philosophical
very philosophical thing, but it's also more how to quantify being
consciousness.
human and
Yeah, how to
consciousness, and we're
quantify
trying
consciousness.
to
There is
apply that
definitely
I should
to
rename the
Yeah.
stream to "How to Quantify Consciousness," and we would
that
get
should
so many views.
Oh god.
well, we'd get listeners, but
Yeah,
or well,
also
no, there's a
views.
video stream.
Yeah, of course.
Are you on Twitch?
No, I'm everywhere but YouTube and Twitch, of course. Sorry, had to say that. No,
Nah,
but
it's
we're
fine.
again getting off topic because I don't know the time that happens. I'm putting myself in the shoes of a galaxy, and you know
But you
the
can't.
millions of
That's
years
an,
on
that's an
billions
entire.
of years.
A galaxy doesn't have shoes.
It's just a cognitive bias, okay? It's how we're
Okay,
used to thinking about
that-
stuff. It doesn't apply to a
Yeah,
galaxy. Like,
okay,
it
that
wouldn't even
one
make
I
sense.
can agree with. Cognitive bias is something that always happens to me.
I'm sure there's like psychological reasons why we perceive time slower when we're older, but that's entirely human centric. It doesn't apply to. There's no like physical reason that should be true at all. I think it's just a quirk of humans.
Also, it's a matter of language, I think, because perceiving time slower when you're older means, to me at least, time there's less happening in the same amount of conscious time happening. But what I mean is, when you're getting older, stuff seems to be happening faster for you. So, like, your birthdays seem to be getting closer and closer.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Also so sad.
Stuff like that. And that is what I mean, that also might apply to a conscious, in air quotes, galaxy. if
I'm
a
gonna
galaxy
be
were
18
conscious,
in about
if it
half a
got
year.
4 billion years old, it would think stuff is happening so much faster right now, and time would always be accelerating in its conscious perception of time itself. It might still be subjective, but yeah, well, we're talking about subjective stuff.
Eh,
Do you know what's weird? I think by the time I am actually able to get myself back to the bubble, I will have left age 17 and returned physically age 18.
When's your birthday?
14th November 2001.
Oh, you're thinking of getting back to the bubble like when it's repaired after burning?
Sorry?
You're thinking to get back to the bubble when it's repaired after burning down because Thargoids?
Oh, right, yeah.
Uh,
Not only that,
That's
but now
what
with
I'm
Explorer's
planning to
Anchorage,
do. Yeah, exactly.
Explorer's Anchorage, we can stay out there as long as we need anyway.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not going to do my Children of the Mist thing because that's not going to fall through. I'm 17. I'm not going to be able to willingly keep up with that. But doing it myself would be quite fun
Yeah, I believe
because
so
then
too.
I'd get the credit.
Yeah, but I will be in the vicinity at least. I will be, well, roaming the Delta Quadrant.
The what's the technical name for the bit where it's like all misty and like we can't see it in real life? The abyss. The abyss. What's the? Is it just the abyss?
The unknown.
The unknown.
The
The unknown
dark
abyss?
lands.
The unknown Darklands.
She's typing something. I want to see what she's typing.
well, I'm replying to people. I'm on the
Yeah,
wrong
we should
account.
actually pick up on what they're saying. I've been
Yes.
wanting to get back to that. So
Yes.
for me, I'll read out what they wrote. Stars have been flung out of a galaxy in braces. These stars have been catalogued with the prefix IC and are known as intergalactic stars. So the collision of Andromeda will probably increase the chance of Sol becoming an IC, but only by a minuscule fraction. If a galaxy was to become anthropomorphic, that's related to what I was talking about. He thinks a second to the galaxy would be a million minutes to the human. This is only guesswork, of course. Yeah, of course, it's guesswork. What else? Sky Captain is saying, with all the radiation being thrown out near the center of the galaxy, what are the chances of life and any life of any kind forming there?
Yeah, I think we touched on this a few weeks ago. Basically, the main risk you have at the center of the galaxy is whenever your supermassive black hole basically flares up, when it starts eating matter again. And that's why they couldn't get a picture of Sagittarius A star when they got the picture of the other supermassive black hole. It's because the other one is currently accreting matter, but Sagittarius A star is not. So it's currently dormant. We think it was active in the past, and we think it's possible when it's active that it kind of sterilizes the very core of the galaxy because of X-rays and gamma rays. But it's not certain that how strong the sterilization power is, and it's not certain that it would actually revive because of the collision. In the absence of an active supermassive black hole, the center is actually quite safe. There's nothing special going on there. The stars are a bit more close together, but there's no extra dangerous radiation floating around. It's only if Sagittarius A star revives, then it might kind of mess up. Maybe I think some of the calculations show almost a third of the way to the sun. All the part of the central third up to the sun could have lethal levels of gamma rays. But hey, that's not where we are anyway.
Thankfully not. That would be...
Well, it might be one of the reasons that life formed on the sun so far away from the center, right? If the black hole at the center of spiral galaxies does tend to flare up regularly, then it would destroy all life in the center on a regular basis. That's not great. There might be a selection effect that life tends to evolve where it's safe.
I think you're touching on the great filters theory. Is that the one?
No, it's just
Ah,
just the anthropic principle
right.
in a way. I guess I don't like the anthropic principle, but if indeed the center of galaxies are unsafe, it's not very surprising that's not where life appeared. At
Okay.
least.
I have a personal question just while we're waiting for a few more. Obviously, when it comes to galaxies, they're huge amalgamations of stars, due to gravity, as you've already said. But what about the other forces of the universe? What about, like, obviously the strong force, that's not going to have a huge effect except on like fusion of the stars themselves. But what is there any other effects that happen on a galactic wide scale? For instance, magnetic fields. I've heard something about them, but I've never actually looked into them. What
Oh
what
no,
what sorts of...
definitely. Uh, the life and structures of galaxies are actually super interesting and super complicated. In addition to supermassive black holes in the center, there's a whole bunch of effects going on. Uh, Different ones in the center and the outskirts, but mostly it's about the balance of gravity and thermodynamics. They are by far the most important forces. But it's actually a really complicated interplay of the two. So, for example, stars uh, during their life emit what is called stellar wind, and when they die, obviously many of them go supernova, and that also creates a lot of radial winds. So every time, in every place in the Milky Way where you have star formation, you tend to have an outflow of gas, just going outwards from where the star formation is. So on a galactic scale, this gas gets ejected up uh, because it's moving fast from this um, initial momentum, but it's also heated up because stars are hot. So this gas that gets ejected tends to be really hot. Then it rises up as it gets more time passes and gets away from the stars. It cools down, and then it gets kind of reabsorbed by the galaxy once it's far away enough that gravity starts attracting it back in again. So you get this like big convective cycle of gas. Depending on when the stars are, it basically starts bubbling up the gas. It goes up and falls back down, kind of like a fountain. Actually, the gas that stars are made from inside a galaxy moves around a whole bunch, and all different parts of the galaxies have different balances and different speeds of gas. Different types of stars affect it too. If they have more magnetic fields, you can kind of condense all the gas in different parts. Uh, you get things like dust, the things that were made of, like silicates and carbons. They're not distributed evenly through the galaxy at all. They really tend to focus on specific parts, kind of like the kind of if you imagine a fountain with some leaves on it, they will tend to kind of flow towards the spots where the water isn't moving very much. So it's kind of in the same way. And all this chaotic motion, all these different materials really distribute themselves through the galaxy. Uh, it's a bit like a galaxy map. So when you have in things like what's a good star expansion game like Stellaris, when you have different areas with different resources, that's definitely the case. Different parts of the galaxy are all different, which I think is really cool. And there's a whole field of astronomy dedicated to that, looking at the internal structures and which parts do what.
Nice. So, we have gotten another question in. This is quite this is more towards last week on the topic of stars, but it's likely a straggler that we didn't get to. So what is your most favorite type of star and why? And maybe to relate it to this week, why maybe on a galactic scale would it be significant in any way? What sort of stuff is required for it? I guess.
Yeah, my favorite type of stars as a cosmologist, it has to be Cepheid variable stars, just because they're the reason we even know how far other galaxies are. They're the reason we first got cosmology. The first time we really saw something outside our own galaxy and we realized how ridiculously far it was because of these Cepheid stars. So I think we touched on this last week. Basically, Cepheid stars um, are stars on the verge of moving from using hydrogen as a fuel source in the core to using helium as a fuel source instead. Uh, and when that happens, when they're just on the boundary of the mass or of a certain mass, and then they can switch from one to the other, they switch to helium. Suddenly, that process makes them generate a lot more heat, so they dilate a bit, and then they become unable to use helium, so they go back to hydrogen. So then they cool down and they contract again until they're hot enough, and they switch to helium, and then they switch again and again. It always oscillates on this in this very very repeatable cycle of the star being hot and cold and hot and cold at always the same rate. It's extremely predictable. And if you know how bright a Cepheid star is, you know how fast it oscillates. If you can see how fast it's oscillating, you know how bright it is, because it's in our Milky Way always the same. And so we can use this to know how far other galaxies are, basically, because we can spot one, say in Andromeda. We go, oh, there's a Cepheid. We can see how fast it's oscillating, going between bright and less bright, and we go, oh, okay, well, in our Milky Way, all the Cepheids of that speed are this brightness; they're all the same. So then we know how bright the star in Andromeda is intrinsically, and we can work out how far it is as a standard candle. And hence, cosmology first became a thing. We started measuring the distances to all the galaxies around the Milky Way. Then we started measuring their speeds. We noticed the universe was expanding, all of it. It all started from Cepheids, which is super neat.
Agreed. Isn't there also something to do with the redshift of a Cepheid or a standard candle? Or well, how am I trying to word this? Isn't the standard candles also a way to tell the direction that a galaxy is going away from us, or is that just like the general light from the galaxy as well?
Well, the Cepheid actually tells you how far away it is, period. How fast it's moving away from you. At least you can see how much the redshift is. That's a good start. So you can measure the redshift, that is how wrong the wavelength is, by what factor is the wavelength of the star wrong. And that's how we first noticed that the ones more far away also have higher redshifts. Except at the time, people didn't really agree on what the redshift meant. Now, with more observations, we know that redshift means it's moving away from us at a certain speed. So that's how you relate the distance that you know from the Cepheid to the speed of recession that is moving away from us.
Ah, okay. Now, I have got another personal question, because this was quite a strange thing that I was wondering, and I realised that it might be quite an advanced thing as well. For instance, there's a bit of a story behind this, but when I was first told that there should have been equal amounts of matter and antimatter created, and that for the universe we have today, we would have to have 1 billion to 1 billion and 1 uh, antimatter to matter. I was thinking that, why is it that that had to happen, instead of the fact that the universe could have simply expanded so much so quickly that instead of that happening, they were just dragged apart? And so my question is, what do you think of the possibility, or how stupid do you think the idea is, of having, say, possibly entire galaxies made out of some form of antimatter? Because they're so far away from each other that the only way you would be able to tell would be to try and find some difference between matter and antimatter, and I have been told, and technically I've been shown, but not really, that they should actually have very similar properties, except that there's the opposite charge. So what would you have to say to that as a cosmologist? Where is your take on that? What's the possibilities?
Well, solving the problem of matter versus antimatter by things ending up far away from each other, that is literally the theory of inflation. I mean, that's one of the reasons we had to come up with inflation, was to solve this problem. And it's actually, well, not the matter-antimatter imbalance, not only that, also other problems, but that also would be part of the inflation theory. So it's true, you can have a bit more antimatter. Well, okay, let's go back to the start. If you have exactly 50-50 matter and antimatter, at the origin point, when matter actually, when the particles actually appear, when the universe starts creating matter in what we call baryogenesis, uh, by that point, you need to already have parts of the universe that will never touch each other again, right? Because if all the parts of the universe were still touching each other when the matter and antimatter appear, they would all annihilate together. So you need a universe big enough by that point of creation that they will not overlap. And we achieve that in cosmology by inflation, which is that before this very early stage of matter creation, when the universe was just made of pure space, there was an initial expansion, a lot faster than the expansion we see today, a lot faster. It expanded by factors of billions in less than a second, when it was only made of space. And then when that process finishes, the leftover energy from this rapid expansion, that energy becomes matter via E equals mc squared. Basically, that's the theory of inflation. And that's one way of solving the problem, and it's one way of having matter and antimatter basically live in different parts of the universe, very, very far away from each other. So that's a great idea. It's one that is currently our best explanation for a lot of things related to the cosmic microwave background and cosmology. It's our only explanation for a lot of the early universe stuff. But as far as the galaxies that we see with telescopes being made out of antimatter, that is most likely not the case. The ones that we actually see in our local universe don't seem to be made of the stuff. And we know that because galaxies are not actually so isolated from each other. So like we touched on earlier, actually galaxies on a map, they're quite close to each other compared to their size. And because of all this process of gas fountaining and gas recycling being flowing out of galaxies and back in again, actually the gas from different galaxies does touch each other very, very often. That's a very, very common thing to happen. And if one was made of antimatter, at the point where the gases touch, you would get enormous cataclysmic explosions. It would be really obvious. So we think not the ones we see anyway. Now, could they be even further away? Probably. Not impossible. It's hard to speculate what's behind the observable universe, because we only see such a small part, really.
Yeah.
Can't we extrapolate?
If we extrapolate, there's no antimatter. Well, at least there's a lot more matter than antimatter. Because the gaps between galaxies don't allow it, right? If you ever had a galaxy made out of antimatter within range of a normal galaxy, all the gas would touch each other and light up, and that's never been seen. So we've never seen an antimatter galaxy locally. So if you extrapolate never seeing one, they don't exist, but it's a theoretical possibility.
I have just had another idea. Do you now? A lot of my ideas come with a bit of a story, so that I can get my head around my own head. But Neil deGrasse, a lot of this is based off of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a bit of an idol. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Neil deGrasse Tyson to me is what Carl Sagan was to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Only difference is I haven't met Neil deGrasse Tyson on a bus and been handed my book in his office. But
Oh God. If I ever
obviously,
write a book, I'm so scared of handing it to the people who I read the books of. Jesus, I can't even imagine.
I'm sure it'll be fantastic. Anyway, essentially, he was on the Stephen Colbert show, and he was asked, as an astrophysicist, what keeps you up at night? Or well, what keeps Neil deGrasse Tyson up at night? And he said, in essence, like I get the feeling I'm going to simplify this to a point where a bit of it is lost, but what he said was that there is a point past which the universe is expanding so quickly that any light beyond that point will never have any opportunity to reach us, and so is completely invisible to us forever. Now, do you think that with the strangeness of the universe, or well, obviously this is unfortunately going to be an opinion entirely based off of the nature of the question, and so technically it's a completely illogical question to ask, but do you think, just for a bit of fun, that that might be where the unattainable answer to the antimatter question could be?
So you mean
No, I don't actually. That's a no.
so
I think the answer.
what you
So
mean is about what we actually can observe is about the part that well the difference of antimatter we're missing.
yeah, so I don't think that's where the answer will come from. It's true there's a part of the universe beyond what we can see where anything could be hidden, and there is a part of the universe which is going so fast away from us that we will never see what's in it. So it's true that technically you can hide anything there, right? And I'm sure people will, as soon as they run out of places to hide things, they will hide it in the places where it can never be tested. But the universe locally, to all the tests we have submitted it to, seems to have the same laws of physics everywhere. Since the Big Bang to today and everywhere in the universe, the laws of physics do not vary. I think the answer to the matter-antimatter imbalance will come from particle physics, because it sounds like a particle physics thing. I would be surprised if once we have a complete model of particle physics, if that's not included in that somehow. That sounds a lot more likely to me than being an unobtainable answer. Also, that's not an unobtainable answer isn't very scientific, so that would always be my last resource, really.
Right.
If there's an, I would rather understand particle physics than say something might be unobtainable. You know, I think that's a bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
And particle physics is incomplete anyway, and we know this. So there is work to be done. There are new particles to find. There is a whole bunch of quantum mechanics and quantum field theory that we still get wrong. So we can't claim that we've ruled out everything else, because we haven't. So let's do that first.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's a thing, I need to look this up. There was a thing by a mathematician called Gödel. I believe the technical name was. Let me just search this up to verify. Gödel. Michael, do you know how to type an umlaut on an English keyboard?
Oh,
Well, it depends on the umlaut.
No, it's just.
It's
oh yeah,
either
there's multiple.
it's
Just the
either
double dots.
AE, it's OE or UE. Just choose.
if you type it into Google without an umlaut, it will still find it.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm technical. Gödel's
Gödel.
Gödel's
Theorem.
Gödel. Gödel's. Oh no, we are not going there. Well, no, we are not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna use my joker on this one. That is a whole topic for a whole different show.
What do you mean? What?
That is an
Complicated.
enormous subject. It's an enormously complicated and far-reaching subject that has nothing to do with astronomy. Even summarizing what it says would take an hour. Okay.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
don't
think I
have
can.
another
I
hour.
don't think that's a good tangent to go on. I think it's a bit too big.
No. I'm only talking about well, technically, it's not small, but I'm going to explain it as a small bit.
Oh,
His-
try. Go
Let's.
ahead.
It cannot be summarized. If you're trying to summarize Gödel's
Oh.
theorem in 5 minutes, you can't do it. It's just really complicated stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's just one of these things that has to be done really properly, otherwise it becomes a crackpot thing.
yeah, we should
It's a delicate
Okay.
subject.
note that down for another show.
I'll respect that. I'm sad now, though.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but we're
My-
actually
I can-
closing in on the end of the show, so
If you're actually
starting that
knowledgeable
now.
of it and you want to ask like specific questions on it, you can just send me PMs. That's a lot easier if we don't have to lay the groundwork for what it is and what it means, because that would take a long time.
Yeah,
So
probably would.
it really would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
that,
don't. I've not even fully. No, I've not. I've not even partially discussed it.
I actually have to remark you on how proficient you are already in those fields.
Yeah,
at
but
your
that's
age.
because I've not had a social life for the past 5 years.
Yeah, well, at your
That's
age, I
okay.
didn't have either.
I didn't
But-
have a social life until I went to university.
Yeah, and at 17, I didn't have a social life either. So, still, yeah,
No
for
shame
you.
in that.
Yeah,
As
no
long as
shame
you're
in that.
happy.
Yeah, and you're still
When
very
was
far.
the first? I'm not going to treat this like a competition, but when was the first time that someone decided to call you their best friend?
Well, my
guess
best friend
what,
and I have been best friends since childhood, so
I think
I'm
that
not
was
one to
actually
answer
my
that.
boyfriend, so it was quite late. I think one of my boyfriends called me his best friend before I actually had a best friend. Sad times. That is not a good thing.
Yeah, I went the other way. I had a best friend who, well, keep in mind, I'm 17. This was about 4 years ago. No, when was it? It was in third to fourth year. So yeah, I would have been like 15. Me and my best friend, we ended up dating, and it was awful. Well, no, it wasn't awful. It was fun, but it turned out to be awful because it didn't work. And I have not had a best friend since then.
That sounds
So
about right. That sounds about right.
yeah, don't try to date your best friends, especially not at 15 when you don't know what the hell you're doing. Because-
Yeah.
Jesus Christ! Just don't try at 17. You don't know what
Too
you're
much
doing.
drama. Too much drama.
Just there's so much that just doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
Concentrate on
God,
getting a pilot's license
Carrie
at that age.
just. Sorry, I
Get
I
the
didn't-
pilot's license.
One of my friends, he's actually wanting to be a pilot. He's getting the money together for the flight school. He's a very nice person. If you ever get Captain Hodge, I won't say his first name. I don't want people tracking down. I'm sure no one would, but like still, if you ever get a Captain Hodge, say Satin Captain, and he'll know that I sent you.
Satin Captain.
Satin
Maybe he's
Captain.
listening.
No, I won't be.
Anyway.
I mean, he was like, when we first when I first started like actually being like officially a co-host on this, he was surprisingly the most excited. So he's probably my best friend. But yeah, I don't think he watches or well I should say listens. But he's a nice guy. So if you ever get Captain Hodge,
Yeah.
he's a good guy.
If you're listening, hi.
Hi, genau. Yeah. Well, we don't have actually reached the 2 hour mark yet, but since we've run out of questions, why don't we close it down for today here?
Well,
at
we
this
could have a
point?
That's
dance.
fine.
We
a dance?
could have a dance.
Yeah,
Well,
let's dance.
I'm not capable of dancing right now, so yeah.
Oh, Doctor, do you want to dance?
I am shuffling from side to side slightly.
Okay, yeah, I can do that too, but that's not dancing, that's just moving.
I'm gonna be
Sorry.
I'm gonna be honest. I think just slightly moving from side to side is. We have had a fantastic idea from unknown. We could do karaoke.
Oh god, no.
Is Chank online? Chank,
No.
if you're listening,
no,
we need your help.
No.
No, why
The
not?
Emperor is saying no.
The
Kenny.
host has spoken.
Also, Kenny is saying no.
No.
Kenny is asking what is the square root of pi? Of a pi. Square root of a pi.
The square root of a pi is about
pi.
1.5 pies.
Whoop.
Are
I'm
you
an astronomer.
approximating pi to be 3 so that you're looking at the square root of 3?
No, because
No, it's
No.
just
Or am I
I'm an
off?
astronomer, okay? So everything has to be correct within 50%. Pi squared is always 10, and the square root of pi is 1.5. Because the things I measure are never more accurate than this. So
Oh,
the square root of pi. Yeah, Kenny, we know it. You mean cake? Yes, the square root of cake.
if you
Well, let's take rectangular. Let's take a rectangular cake for scientific ease. So what's the square root of a cake? Well, it's side length.
so you would have a cake with an infinitesimally small point.
Oh, it's a square
With an
cake.
No. That's what I'm
It's the
talking
square
about.
root of an object. It makes no sense. A cake isn't a number.
That's what I'm
No.
talking about, though. An irrational number.
The square root of one cake is 1. So the square root of a cake is a cake. Cakes are not a number.
No, but if you take cake as a variable for something, it
It could be literally anything.
it's
Okay, it sounds like the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kenny. It was a perfect segue. Yeah, as I'm not capable of keeping this show going with any sensible matter or topic, yeah, I agree. Let's shut it down here.
It's fine. This
Yeah.
Probably a better idea.
Since the expedition has ended, I guess we can keep having those on a regular schedule or space them out, because I assume less people will be tuning in if no one's following the radio as much.
But people will be still eager for regular shows, so I
And
for
my
one vote
accent.
we keep this going, even if the topics won't be as focused as before.
Or it gets more and more off topic forever.
Yeah, if we keep it scientific, it's still valid in my opinion.
Okay.
If we keep it scientific and a discussion and fun, then I will happily continue.
Yeah.
But as soon as someone starts to talk about
Karaoke.
No, karaoke is one thing we won't do on Wednesdays. That's a decree I issue as the emperor.
Fine. Oh, did you
You know
see?
what?
Did you see
You
my
know what?
comment about?
If you're ever in London, either of you, we can go do a real life karaoke.
Yeah, I agree. I want to do that, and I am intending to go to England this year, so hopefully it will happen. And of course, Selfish Pie has to come down from his Highlands when
I'm not in the Highlands. I'm in Glasgow.
Scotland
tell
is
you what.
the Highlands.
No, that's fine. But anyway, the reason I'm clicking is because there was a new karaoke bar opened in Glasgow, and there's fantastic hotels in
No,
Glasgow.
I want
And
to
we
go to
have
London.
Glasgow Airport.
Yeah, but I
And-
want to go to London.
Yeah, but Glasgow's better than London because the Scottish people, not English. That's a very poor joke.
Okay,
and
okay.
I immediately apologise.
Let's split
That
the
was
odds.
awful.
Let's split the odds and go to Ireland.
Okay.
Or Wales.
Yeah, oh Wales, I was about to say that.
I have never been to Wales.
Yeah,
Wales
I
is
have
super
neither.
nice.
I haven't been to Scotland or Ireland either. I've just been to Canterbury and London. That's all I know about England.
My cousin lives in London.
Anyway, this
Speaking
was
of London,
Oh yes.
I will be doing a public event next Thursday. If anyone actually is in London and would like to see me do a live presentation about cosmology and the universe and everything, it's all on my website, and you can find it by just Googling me.
Yeah, sarahbosman.co.uk.
Pretty much.
Yes, you can post it on the radio in the Great Hall for everyone to know again. Anyway, this was Dangerous Cosmology, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, even though we went off topic very, very, very much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for asking your questions, and of course, thank you, Dr. Sarah Bosman, for answering those questions, however ridiculous they were.
It's all fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Tune in hopefully next week for another episode, and I will be uploading it as soon as I can. I'm getting distracted by a lot of stuff, but thank you and good night or good day or good morning or whatever time zone you are listening from or watching the VOD, of course.
I have an idea for a planetary thing we could say.
Okay, do it.
Have a good existence. There was meant to be more, and I'll come up with it. But
Okay. Next, to be continued. Next week we will be having more complete
Another word.
sentence. Yeah, have a good existence so far. Live long and prosper, everyone. Goodbye. Good night.
No, that's trademarked. That's trademarked.
Oh, anyway, live prosper and long. Trademark avoided. No problem. Bye bye, everyone.
Woo!
Bye bye.
Bye bye.